Welcome to Boulevard TV. Today, I'm at Bellamy Homes here in Kelowna with the one and only Les Bellamy. Les, thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you for being here.
It's been an incredible weekend for you. You cleared house.
We had a very successful weekend. I'm very proud of our team for the successes that we had. We broke two association records. So yeah, we're feeling pretty good about it.
You started the company in 2008. 2009, right?
Yep, 2008. Yeah.
In that time period, you broke quite a few records, actually.
Yeah, I would say the first award, or the first record that we broke was actually in 2021 when we achieved Builder of the Year for the third time.
Nice.
So, there's a bit of a journey there. The first time we received that award was in 2016. And, being a new company, that was quite humbling for us to see that, new company with new big ideas that we could actually stand among the best. Then in 2018, we achieved the award again, and we looked at that and said, okay, we must be doing something right. 2021 is when we broke the record. So we were the only builder in the 29-year history of the awards program to achieve it 3 times.
Wow.
This weekend, 2025, we just achieved it for the 4th time. So I'm very, very proud of our team.
Born and raised in Armstrong, you moved to Kelowna, and you were actually the general manager of Kelly O'Brien's.
Yeah.
So how did you do the transition from Kelly O'Brien? How did you even start at Kelly O'Brien's?
Yeah, well, that's a very long story, and that goes way back into history. But yeah, when I came out of high school, and I was actually a musician.
You still are.
I am. But back then, trying to make ends meet, and like a lot of musicians working in the restaurant and bar business. So that's where that started. I was the youngest general manager in the history of that franchise.
Wow.
I was 21 years old when I became general manager. But I wanted to pursue my music career, and I left that industry. And in 1992, I needed a day job to make ends meet, and I got hired as a cleanup boy on a construction site.
Wow. So you started from the grounds up.
I very literally from the ground up, picking up garbage to where we are today. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then when you started Bellamy Homes, now you actually have 2 companies. You have Bellamy Homes and you have Bellamy Design.
Les Bellamy Design Group.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Bellamy Homes Inc. Yeah.
Very distinct, unique differences. One of them focuses just on the design and the other one on the construction, build, the whole 9 yards, right?
Yes, but very integrated. So, a lot of people know Bellamy Homes as the builder.
Yeah.
We've got
That's actually all I knew of you,
Right.
You are a builder.
A very established reputation there. What most people didn't realize is I've been designing houses since 1995.
Wow.
And that's always been something sort of in the background. And then as Bellamy Homes was created in 2008, obviously we did all of our own design work, but it was all, fully integrated, but not marketed as 2 separate entities.
Yeah.
It's only been in the recent couple of years where I've identified that we should show that distinct difference between the design and the build, although it is 100% fully integrated under this roof. Yeah.
So that's been one of your trademarks, actually, I guess, like designing with other people as well.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of time to design for other people. I keep myself rather busy, but we do provide designs for other people. I've got actually folks that I'm designing for outside of the country.
Really?
And I sell some of my designs we've done in the past. There's a builder on the Lower Mainland that's bought a few of our designs.
Yeah. So, yeah. The funny part out of for even today, this was we were coming in, everything was scheduled, ready to go, and I got this text message from you saying we have to postpone. I'm like, what the fuck, Les? What? Why? And so I was like, can I see you? Yeah. I come in. And you're like, I didn't even see this. Why do we have to postpone? And he's like, look at what happened. And you had this shelf full of your trophies over the years. And you're like, they broke. I put the next one on and they broke. And I'm like, this, so you bought so many metals that actually it broke the shelf.
It's a first world problem.
This is unbelievable.
When I built this shelving unit, several years ago, you got this many units and you think it's going to be fine. And then as time goes on, we've achieved more awards. And yeah, this weekend we really did well this weekend, and we exceeded its maximum capacity, and I had a bit of a disaster, and my display shelf fell apart.
The funny part, that wasn't even the biggest issue, but like what I find fascinating with you jumped to the solution right away. Like next thing you say, oh yeah, I already designed I ordered it, and I'm like, what the fuck did just happen? How did you go from like the chaos to all of a sudden, okay, well, I'm going to improve and I'm going to look at the design again, because I think it's absolutely fascinating. Like, you're quick on your feet, eh? Like, do you approach all of your jobs that way?
Yeah, Mario, when you're in this industry, you've got to be quick on your feet. It's sometimes this industry is a little like herding cats, and I was able to take advantage of our in-house systems, which was primarily myself. So yeah, so once I got over the shock of, oh my gosh, how much of a disaster this actually could have been. There's trophies there that are 15 years old that could never be replaced. So and
actually nothing happened. Like the glass literally just everything stayed
collapsed like a house of cards, and nothing broke except for the mounting clips for the shelf system. It's just a bizarre situation.
And now on the table, like you have those, like I don't even know, like 15, 20 awards that were, and like right behind you, you have what did you say? It's the Georgie, right?
We've got. Oh, right behind us here? Yeah, so we've got a Georgie Award, which is the provincial award. It's the highest award you can achieve on the provincial level. It's Customer Satisfaction Award.
Yeah.
And we've got this year, Design Firm of the Year trophy is there, and I think the other one is Builder of the Year from 2020.
Which is the highest you can get in the Okanagan.
Builder of the Year is a very prestigious award to get. So.
You are a huge advocate in the building industry. Like, you are member on and off for the Canadian Home Builders Association. Why is that so important to you?
Yeah, well, so yeah, on and off, I've sat as a director on the board of directors. I've sat in an executive director position with the board of directors. I'm actively involved in the association. I think the association is extremely important on two levels. Mm-hmm. One, for the consumers. Consumers can look at members of the association as business owners who are going to hold themselves to a little higher bar. That not everybody can become a member of this association. There's certain standards you need to meet. So for consumers, there's some confidence protection there. As an industry member, having the collaboration with my peers, access to information, the collaborative approaches that happen, it's invaluable to me as a business owner. And I've built some of my closest friendships through the association with like-minded peers.
Mm-hmm. It's very true. Like at all the events that we attended, like you are very well regarded. You have, I guess, one of the friends, Justin O'Connor.
Yes.
That's how I met you. Actually, you guys ride Harleys together, and like, are you still doing that?
Yes, very much so.
You do.
So
you're very passionate about that.
There's the daytime gig, and then there's the weekend. Let loose and.
I've never actually seen you in leather. Not that now saying that out loud. Not that I want to. Actually, yeah. But you ride like down the coast, and you have like a bunch of dudes. You just head south and just enjoy yourself. Eh?
Yeah.
So you play hard, you work hard, you play hard.
Riding is a great release. When you're riding a motorcycle, you can't really be thinking about anything else except for that. That action. So it's a great mind clearing. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, obviously, in today's time. We have all the tariffs coming in and all the shit that's happening down here in the building industry. What do you see for yourself? Like, how do you see is that going to affect the community here?
I think that I'm in the same spot just about everybody else is. We don't know.
We don't know.
I
love that. Like that you don't say like speculative. Oh, it's gonna be like it's doomsdays everywhere. But at the end of the day, we have actually no idea.
I think the world needs less speculation and and more research.
Yeah. Yeah. So you take that pretty chill, and you've been through ups and downs in this community too. Right?
Well, I started Bellamy Homes in 2008. If you remember, that was the worst
Oh.
economic collapse since the Great Depression. So all of my friends and my family, except for my wife, said, "You're nuts, what are you doing?" My wife said, "I know the personality that you have, and you will make this successful no matter what's going on around you."
Yeah.
She was more confident than I was, and I appreciate that. But
Yeah.
so, but starting a company in that kind of economic position gives you the time to get all of your policies and procedures and functions into place. If you're starting a new business, we just went through a big building boom. And if you're a relatively new company starting a building boom, things can go horribly wrong because you haven't had the time to get yourself worked out. And then when the next inevitable decline comes, you are going to be at an even bigger risk because now you don't know what it's like to work with this much of a margin or a budget, right? So you haven't had that opportunity.
You know what it was, and I'm going to share this. I don't know if I should or not, but I'm going to share this anyways. It was a conversation you and I had, and over the years we got to know each other very well, and in the magazine and here and that. And I remember distinctively there was 2 conversations. I was trying to sell you advertising or do some shit, I don't know. And you're like, "Mario, I have 21 jobs lined up. I don't even know what to do." You were so busy. And then COVID happened. And it went from that much to nothing. And you kept as chill as a cucumber. You kept your shit together. You did what you needed to do. And you came out of it even stronger. I admire that of you.
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you recognizing that. You got to, like I said earlier, this industry sometimes is like herding cats, and you just got to keep it together. Now, I don't always keep it together, and I'll be the first to say I am very pointed in my opinions.
Yeah.
I can be sharp with some of my trade partners when they are not meeting certain expectations that they've set upon themselves.
You're Scorpio, right?
Right? I am not a. No.
What is your birth sign?
I'm an Aries.
Yeah, you're an Aries.
Yeah. For whatever value that brings to me. But yeah, I would say if there were any of my trade partners watching this interview, they'd be like, "Well, yeah, Les is not always calm." No, I'm not always calm. But when the people that I work with, they set my expectations.
Yeah.
When they claim we will do X and I plan for X, if they don't quite make it to X, I'll let them know that I'm disappointed that they didn't meet their responsibilities that they had set for themselves. But when it comes to things just kind of falling apart around you, I am a person that stays pretty calm, cool, and collected. I've been doing this long enough that.
Well, that's my point. I can only speak for myself, and I'm a Taurus. Like, if I had business is great, and you're like on a high, like having businesses lined up less much, and then all of a sudden going from that to uncertainty, like a lot of people were like, "What the fuck?" And that actually, I believe that was a conversation. You were still in your other office on
St. Paul.
On St. Paul, and not only was shit hit the fan, but you bought this unit here, and you came out strong. Like I said, like I was absolutely baffled to see you come out like that heavy.
Yeah, well, I don't know what to say to that. I mean, you gotta roll with the punches and
Precisely, but like for me, even to recall this information, like it was so distinctive that you've seen the ups and downs, like, but you always you always stay leveled. In your industry, there's a lot of people like when times are great, bigger boats, bigger parties, bigger toys, bigger everything. You not. Other than maybe you bought a new Harley or something, but that's probably it.
No, my bike's still 2014, so it's due for a new one. I think that anybody who's got a strong business sense knows that not to overextend yourself. And I think that that's even more important in the building industry because anybody that's been around building for long enough knows that it does this.
Yeah.
It's crash, boom, crash, boom, crash, boom. And so you need to set yourself up for the inevitable crash or downturn. Crash is too strong of a word, the downturn. You need to be fiscally responsible. don't overextend yourself. But that said, I've got friends in the business who I highly respect as builders who have been caught by the downturn.
Yeah.
Not because they overextended themselves, not because they did anything wrong. You just don't know what day is going to start turning down.
Yeah.
And if you're in the middle of building a project, well, you can't stop.
Yeah.
Right? You got to keep going and hope for the best.
In your industry, and I don't think publicly builders or developers do get a lot of credit for that, but I've seen good friends of mine that were fiscally responsible, but on one job, shit just happened. Whether the client didn't pay or couldn't, or it was in lawsuit or like whatever it is, and because you guys are the ones that dish up the money up front, and then hopefully getting paid back. So it's a lot of money out first, then may or may not get back.
Yeah, the average consumer actually doesn't understand the risk that builders take. And the average consumer says, well, that's why you make all the profit. But in the same sentence, they'll say builders make too much profit.
Not knowing when shit hit the fan.
Because it will, right?
Yeah.
It absolutely will. But, a lot of times the reason builders struggle financially, it all comes back to the banking system. So the banks are in the business of lending money, yet they won't lend the money until a builder reaches a certain milestone. Now, back in the 70s, when it cost $125,000 to build a house and it was built in 3 months, that system worked.
Yeah.
Now, homes cost in the millions. It's very difficult to build a new home, single-family detached home for under $1 million. It can be done, but you're getting a very entry-level home. So let's say roughly $1 million, and it takes 8 to 10 months to build it. So now you're taking that $1 million and spreading it over that period of time. How is a builder supposed to pay his trades and suppliers on time if the bank won't release the money to the homeowner, who can then pay their builder, who can then pay their bills? So,
it's a lot of money out.
Wasn't expecting to go down this conversation today, but we look at the builder's lien holdback legislation, probably the worst legislation that's ever been written in our province. That is written to protect the consumer, and all it has done is not protect the consumer, drive up the cost of construction, force builders to not be able to pay their bills on time because we're supposed to be, the homeowner is holding back 10% of every payment to us, and we are supposed to in turn hold back 10% of our payment to our trades, and they hold back 10% of their payment to their
so it
suppliers.
keeps going down.
It keeps going down, and when the average home, the average builder's making about 10% on building a house, if they're not getting paid that 10%, that means zero profit. That means if I'm not making any money, then I can't pay my staff, I can't pay my electricity bill. So it just
because
keeps
if you
going
think about it, in hindsight, on $1 million, 10%, that's $100,000.
Yeah, that's on one house.
That's on one house.
Imagine if I'm building 10 homes, like a lot of builders will build 10 homes. They'll have 10 homes under construction, and all of those are being held back $100,000 on $1 million. That's $1 million in holdback. Where's the $1 million coming from? I don't know too many builders that got a pocket full of $1 million for floating bills on.
And if we're talking about that on a profit, that's, you still have to pay rent, you still have to pay, it sounds very exorbitant, but nobody really looks at what's left at the bottom line.
Not at all. If you want to know why housing is unaffordable, look at government regulation, look at taxes, right? The CHBA did a study that on average, 26% of the cost of a home is taxes and fees. So if your house is $1 million, $260,000 of that is taxes and fees, all government related to cost.
So bureaucracy is a huge issue in your industry.
I'll tell you right now, if I could make 20% as a builder, I'd build one home a year and spend most of my time on the golf course.
Yep.
Yeah, it's insane how much money people are having to pay in housing to the government.
And you are a hard worker. I'm an early riser. And there's many times I drive by here at 4:30 in the morning. Les Bellamy sits behind his computer, drinks his coffee, and is already working.
I've always been an early riser, but yeah, my day starts at 4:30. in the last few months now, I'm going to the gym at 4:30, so I don't actually get here to the office till
5:30.
Yeah, no, but yeah, 6:30ish.
6:30.
Yeah.
But you're still up early. You know,
Yeah,
on a lot
yeah.
and the same with me. But at the most of times when I drive by and I'm like, because my wife doesn't work far from here either, like I'm just like, oh, there's less already. And again, kudos to you, you know.
Well, yeah, but that a lot of that comes from the fact that I really love what I'm doing. Like when I'm designing a house, I don't feel like I'm working. Sure, when I'm drawing the construction drawings, you know, and labeling it and putting dimensions, because I do all my own drafting as well. Sure, that's a work part of it. But when I'm inventing a home, when I'm designing a kitchen or I'm doing the interior design of a luxury home, that is very rewarding and exciting to me, and I don't feel like I'm working, and I get lost. I get lost in my headspace. You can drive by here at 6:30 at night, and I'll still be here.
Yeah.
And I'll get a text from my wife reminding me that I should be home.
Yeah. What was the most expensive home you built?
Well, that's all relative because it depends on what decade you're talking about.
No, but like, you mean like, well, with inflation,
right?
I guess you put
You
that
know,
in
if I look back 10 years ago and I was building $3 million homes 10 years ago, you're sure not doing that now. That would be probably pushing 6 million. So,
6 million.
yeah, somewhere between 5 and 6 million, I guess would be.
But
the
that's
most
still
expensive.
that's a significant amount. Big
Yeah,
real estate.
I look less at the dollar value of the homes and more at the complexity. So we are known for designing and building very complex projects, waterfront properties, extreme hillside properties. So I don't look so much at the cost of what we're building and more on the complexity.
Yeah.
Right. So I take a lot more pride in creating something that's super complex, and not that I'm making it complex, but what I have to work with is complex. So we work on some very steep hillsides, really steep terrain, right against the water. So we're working with government agencies because we're in environmentally sensitive areas. You know, the steep terrains, geotechnical concerns, and then I need to design around that.
The complexity of some of the homes that you build. You like that challenge just to figure it out or make it work, or why are you guys known for that?
Yeah, we're known that. Yeah, I really like that, and we've worked on some really challenging properties. You know, extreme grades coming down right down to the lakefront. So you know, we're working with the government agencies on environmental sensitivities, geotechnical engineers because of the steep slopes. But what I find really exciting is trying to design to that. And we don't want our homes to look like something just stuck on the side of a hill.
Yeah.
We want it to look integrated into the environment. So it gives me opportunities to figure out creative ways to multi-tier a dwelling without it feeling like, you know, there's a whole bunch of stairs and levels. And then I'll integrate outdoor living spaces to each one of those levels so that each level feels connected to nature and just working its way down to the waterfront. But doing that takes a lot of, you know, complicated design aspects and structural engineering. So I fall back onto my background. You know, I was a framer before I became a builder.
That's unbelievable. All the stuff you did, you like, you just in everything. Like you know everything about everything. Like not a lot of builders have that. That started from the ground up and they know, you know, the framing, the building, the you know, what goes with it, kitchen design, like everything that goes with it. You know everything.
It's very unusual, and I bore easily, and I push myself, and I could sit back and watch a silly sitcom on television, or I can watch tutorials on how to do different forms of construction or design. You know, we live in a really interesting time. When I look at when I started designing houses in 1995, it was literally, I was on paper. Access to information was essentially you had to either go to school or, you know, I don't know, poke a friend. I didn't do either. I really struggled. I did a lot of reading. But today, our access to information
That's crazy.
It's amazing. There is nothing holding anybody back from being the best designer on the planet because you have access to all the information that all the designers globally have, right? We just, it's at our fingertips. If I'm struggling with something, I literally go in and Google it, and there's probably somebody out there that's done a YouTube video on how to
Do something.
put a flim flam to a doohickey while it's hanging out into no man's land.
Yeah.
Right? So it's an exciting time to be in this industry because you can be a genius. And I am surprised that more have not, discovered that and done something with it.
You know what I think? It's because they're lazy.
I don't think it's laziness. I think everybody learns differently. I'll give you an example. So I was a C minus D student all through high school. Barely made it through high school. When I told my father I wanted to go to music college, my father was a very tough man. I grew up in a tough spot. He told me I was too stupid to graduate. Don't think about college.
Whoa.
Now, a lot of people would let that hold them down.
Yeah.
Well, I took my C minus D grades and I graduated on the honor roll and received a scholarship to go to music college.
Wow.
Because I'm not stupid, just our education system doesn't work for me. It's not the way I figure things out. I figure things out by doing it, not reading it in a textbook.
I'm with you. I can't. Reading is horrible.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah. So I think, for me, maybe I'm going to contradict myself here for a minute, but I said, we have all this access to information. I don't understand why people aren't just out there and doing what I do. Maybe that's not the way that they can learn it. Maybe for them, the classroom environment is the best setting for them. But not all, I don't have children. It's easier for me to take the time to do this. If I had children and there's a need and a desire to spend quality time with my children, then I don't have the extra time to put into my business, right? So I would describe myself as very lucky individual that stumbled across a design ability in the mid-90s, had no idea I could do design and just almost stumbled into that I got myself into construction and just fell in love with it instantly and excelled at it quickly. So, sure, I am responsible for where I am today, but I think there's some luck and good opportunity that was put in front of me at the right time, and I grasped it and was able to get more.
I always hear when I hear like people say, "Oh, luck." We are our own peoples. We create our luck. It's the perseverance of you that created these opportunities. That's why I think and you pinpointed it down, like there is the access to information and knowledge we have today that we didn't have back then. All you have to do is put the time in to come back there, and you can be anything.
I agree. All you have to do is put in the time, but not everybody has the time or the opportunity, right? I mean, we're all lucky because we live in Canada, pretty amazing country, lots of opportunity.
Apparently, to Trump, we're not that great.
Well, there's
trades partners.
But I don't take that as a reliable source.
No, not particularly.
But yeah, I think Canada is a country of equal opportunity, but not all of us are given an equal opportunity to take advantage of it. Mm-hmm. So, and we're probably getting a little bit deep here, but I think even in the construction industry, I think there's some really talented people out there who could excel if they were given the opportunity to excel. And I'll give you an example of that. When I started Bellamy Homes, my wife and I had probably $1,400 in the bank account. I lost my job. I was a project manager for another successful company. Big downturn. He had to cut the fat, and I was the fat. Mm-hmm. And I went home, and my wife and I had just taken on a big mortgage. I had just bought a new truck with it, fully financed. You talk about overextending yourself. I was pretty much there, and here I was out of a job. And what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to start my own construction company. Well, it's not free starting your own company, and so there was, my friends lent me some money. So there's opportunity where I had friends who trusted in me. Not a ton of money. It was a little less expensive back then to get started. Probably the biggest hurdle for me was, okay, I'm qualified to be a builder. I know that I'm probably going to be pretty good at it. But how do I get that out to the consumer that I'm a builder? I can't just hang a sign out on the street and say, call me, I'll build your house, even though I've never built a house as Bellamy Homes before. So that's another journey, maybe for a discussion for another day, how we got down that path. But it took.
But you overcame that hurdle.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Now with the technology, with everything that changes in the building, what are you the biggest advocate for?
That's a great question, Mario. What am I the biggest advocate for? I think that I advocate for more investigation of changes to our industry before we implement them due to unintended consequences. And I'll give you a good example of that. Obviously, I build a great product, and I always push myself to make that product better and better and better and better. And for the most part, my clients have a budget that can support that. As an industry, we always want to build better. But building better does come with a cost.
Yep.
There is always an associated cost to improving anything. And at some point in time, I think we can consistently change our building codes. We are building the most energy efficient homes we've ever built. Starting in March, the entire province of British Columbia will have to design their homes with seismic.
What is that?
That essentially earthquake proof.
Okay. Why?
I'm in my 50s, and I'm aware of just a couple of minor earthquakes in our province.
I was like, I'm in Victoria. I've experienced like maybe 5 or 6. But here in the interior, why would you do that?
Yeah, well, so the scientists say that we are due for the big one. I remember them saying that when I was a child. So, in 40 or 50 years, it still hasn't happened. It could happen tomorrow. It could happen in 500 years from now. But somebody, the powers that be that do the writing of the building code have convinced others that we should design everything to seismic. Now, I can tell you right now, that's not going to be cheap. That will not be cheap at all. That's going to add significant cost.
Well, how much? Roughly.
We're just trying to figure that out, because right now we don't even know exactly what we need to do for the seismic. If you're doing a cookie cutter house, the calculations are relatively simple, and the more complex the house becomes, the more complex the calculations. Is it 2 stories? Then we have city bylaws that say a second story must be set in from the first story. Oh boy, well that doesn't work very well with seismic, so now that gets very complex. And so
is it always an issue that the government gets involved in that? Like, would it be easier if the building industry would regulate themselves versus if the government steps in and says you have to?
Yeah, well, that's a slippery slope, because I think if you ask the average consumer, that they'd say, well, you don't want the industry policing itself, or everything will go to hell in a handbasket, which is not true. But there are those out in the industry who would let that happen to some extent. So I think that.
But they're the ones that are the professionals. Like,
government oversight is, I think, a necessary evil to a point.
okay.
Right? Implementation of new policy is not getting enough robust review before it goes in. Now, if you were to talk to others on that side of that decision making, they would say, well, we had focus groups and we had industry experts, and I've been in those conversations. If we look back into 2018, when we were looking at bringing in the BC Energy Step Code, and so I go into this environment that I'm expecting to be a collaborative environment. You're basically presented with, well, this is what we're going to do, and this is why we're going to do it, and it's going to work for all of these reasons. And when you raise your hand and you say, I see some cost concerns with bringing that in, it's amazing how that room will turn on you and label you as a terrible builder because you are suggesting that maybe we shouldn't make this better.
Which you didn't say, you just said it will cost more.
I said it will cost more, and that we need to take a look at that. And should it be mandatory? Do we beat the public with a stick, or do we entice them with a carrot? And I've always said, why don't we create incentives for people to build a better product?
Yeah.
Right? Instead of mandating it. And then, of course, the counter argument to that is, well, if you don't mandate it, nobody will do it. And to which I say,
if you incentivize them, then.
Well, I can tell you something about our industry. If the public wants it, and we want to be successful, we're going to build it.
Yeah.
And that seems to be the disconnect, because people say, well, the builders won't do it because they're worried about their profits. If the public wants it, we will do it, and the public will pay for it because they really want it.
You know what? This is where I just like the results. And if I look at what has been done and I see the results and it is better, well, then good. But then I look at it and it's like, well, everything it creates is more cost because of all this regulation. You got to do this and you got to do this and you got to application for this and fee for that, permits for this, permits for.
Well, let me put it this way. If I don't know the number, but the number of building code changes from, say, 2012 to now is huge, and some very, very significant. BC Energy Step Code probably being the most significant change to the code in that time frame. And you look at the cost of housing since then. And what I can tell you is we are building far superior homes, more energy efficient, more resilient. We are building better product. And you know what? My very wealthy clients love their really great homes. And I'm watching more and more people not even have a home. And so I throw the question out there, when do we as a society say, look, this is good enough. We can definitely do better. We can always do better. Forever, we can always build better homes. But when do we as a society say, this is pretty darn good. Maybe we should pump the brakes here and let the rest of the society catch up to being able to actually afford these.
Yeah.
Right? I think there are individuals in our country who garner a paycheck by reviewing building codes and increasing those building codes.
Yeah.
And I think there needs to be a little bit more oversight on the motivation. Wrong choice of words, because the motivation is to do the right thing. So.
Well, not everybody has,
but imagine your job is to review the building code, and if 5 years in a row you said, no, we're good, we don't need to do anything. At some point, somebody's going to say, well, do we really need you? And do we really need to pay you to say everything's fine still because it's been 5 years in a row? I'm speaking in extremes, but I think that we need to take a serious look at why we're changing the code. Is it really, really necessary? What's the true value we're bringing? Building a seismic house, is there a value? Sure, if we have an earthquake.
If we're in an earthquake area.
We are going to be very happy that we have, seismic design homes. I think that that's a very low risk. I think we're adding a lot of expense for something that's a low risk.
Yeah. Now let's lighten the mood a little bit.
Yes, I'd like to.
So obviously you won a lot of awards, and there's a lot of other companies that won a lot of awards. From a consumer, if I wanted to build a new home, how would I come to, what would be the benefit to hire somebody like you that won many awards?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So, one of the biggest challenge in having a home designed and built is the communication from, you've got a vision in your mind of what you need for a home, and you're going to convey that to a designer or designers, because there's multiple disciplines in designing a home. There's the structure, there's the interior design, there's the millwork design, there's the lighting, there's landscaping, there's all of these. Yeah.
Overwhelming.
It's overwhelming. And it scares most people away from custom home building, because they're like, wow, I don't know what I want as a consumer. Therefore, I don't know how to convey that to somebody else, which means somebody else is not going to be able to do it, and it's going to fail, so they just go buy an existing home. And I want to assure anybody listening to this that that is simply not the case. When you're hiring the right designers, and that doesn't mean just me, there are so many phenomenal designers in our region, the right designer will ask the right question, will ask you questions that you're like, oh, I've never even thought about that, right? I'll ask you, what time do you get up in the morning? You'll be like, why do you care? Well, because then I'm going to ask your spouse the same question. And if you have different timetables, then I might think about where the lighting for the bathroom is, or where the light switch for that is. Or, one person's getting up. In my case, I get up considerably sooner than my spouse. So I have to think about, well, okay, when I turn on the bathroom light, is it going to shine right in her face? And
that is, I actually didn't even think of that.
Right. So happy wife, happy life, right? So got to put those lights in the right spot.
How long have you been married?
It'll be 27 years this year.
Good for you, man.
Yeah, she's a very patient lady.
Yeah.
So with the right designers, they're going to ask you the right questions and get inside your head of what functions. So I'm going to say the advantage with working with our firm specifically is that we are a full design firm. Mm-hmm. We are doing the building design, which to layman's is the architect's role. I am not an architect. I'm not a member of the Architects Association.
So you still have to get it stamped off by an architect?
No, that's not the case. So in Canada, you do not need an architect for residential.
Okay.
Anything under, well, there's a whole formula to it. But basically, if you're designing a house in our country, you do not need an architect.
Okay.
And architects typically don't want to do single-family homes.
They like to more the commercial, the big,
That's right.
the big stuff. Yeah.
So, but the Architects Association gets very fussed if I use the word architect because I'm not a member of their association, and I am not schooled, which is something we may want to talk about because people say, well, what kind of training do you need for this? I personally don't have any.
I know, actually.
I've been doing it since 1995. I've garnered 62 industry awards. Actually, no, we just got 5 more this weekend, so I've garnered 67 industry awards for what I do.
Since 2008?
No, this would be since 1995. No, actually, you have a good point. I didn't join the association till 2009, so all of those awards were achieved since 2009.
Whoa.
Yeah, actually, that sounds a little overwhelming.
That sounds a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, so, but the point being, this comes back to when we talk about how people learn. So here, have you ever heard of Frank Lloyd Wright?
Actually, I see the book here.
Yeah,
right.
I'm very inspired by Frank Lloyd Wright.
Yeah.
Frank Lloyd Wright is a globally renowned architect.
Palm Springs, he built a couple of things in Palm Springs.
He's built a bunch of things in a bunch of places, but probably one of his most well-known projects is called Falling Water. So it's a house that he built, and it's just multiple levels, and there's water coming out the bottom. And I encourage you to Google it. It's a phenomenal piece of architecture. But here's what's interesting about Frank Lloyd Wright, world-renowned architect, building designer actually.
Because he's not an architect.
He is not an architect. He was never formally trained in architecture. Now, he did eventually end up working under an architect, which, if I was so inclined, I could do the same thing one day if I decided that I wanted to be clearly
But I think
recognized.
you would have a tough time taking orders from somebody else.
I would have a tough time taking orders from others. Yes. Anyway, but the point, where was I going with that point? I guess is maybe this is a little bit of an education that consumers need to recognize that you do not need an architect to design a house. That what you are truly looking for if you're trying to get a home designed is a residential building designer. Yeah. That's where it starts.
Yeah.
And that's in British Columbia. That's what we have to call ourselves if we're not an architect.
And one that has been recognized by their builds, because like getting one of these awards. It's not like people that nominate, you get nominated, that's one thing. But then the people that are voting on it, it's other people, as far as I understand, from other parts of Canada that then look at the projects and go through it, and they don't know who's who, they just choose based accordingly to what's been submitted.
It's quite a complex process, and it's 100% anonymous.
Yeah.
So we enter images of our product. We do a written description. A panel of judges is brought in from outside of the province. They have no idea who you are or anything about your project except for what you present.
Yeah.
And then it's judged on certain criteria. And you're being judged against your peers' work by professional peers in the industry. To me, it's
a professional eye is looking at the professional work.
Correct. It's actually a great system.
I love it.
It's not all of us standing around patting each other on the back. It's quite stringent and.
But despite the fact how some people are like, oh, this is all bullshit, it's not. Like I know people from Nanaimo that had to judge awards that were held in Ontario somewhere. Like it's a very like you guys, not that you support one another, but the East Coast judges the stuff on the West Coast, and the West Coast judges the stuff on the East Coast. Sounds like it to me.
Yeah.
So that you don't have some of that crossover,
Yeah.
like, oh, this looks like a Les Bellamy design, you know, like.
Yeah,
it's very anonymous.
I wish my designs were so famous that people would recognize it across the country. Don't think we're there yet, but I've been asked.
I love it that you said yet.
Yeah,
Like,
well, you got to have a goal. I've been asked to judge at the national awards.
Yeah.
So all of Canada, right? Same thing. Done online. You got all this imagery. You got all of this write-up, detailed write-ups, and so. I have. First of all, I have no idea where this project is. I'm looking at a house. It could be anywhere in Canada. No idea who built it. Mm-hmm. No idea if it had any challenges, unless they write in their entry that it had its challenges.
Yeah.
And so the national level of our association is reaching out to industry professionals like myself, going, "We think you know a thing or two about building and design. Can you judge these awards?" Right? And so the same happens with judges judging us here. So it's a very anonymous, very detailed, not easy to win these awards.
There was a time 2-3 years ago, I don't remember exactly when, but where you're like, I'm gonna take a break. I'm not gonna submit my stuff in here. What lessons did you learn in that time period? And why did you decide not to do that?
Yeah, this is a difficult question to answer without it coming across wrong. So please recognize I'm saying this with all due modesty. It got to a point, we're being extremely successful.
Yeah.
We're winning a lot of awards. When you're consistently successful and you're winning a lot of awards, there's a lot of industry peers that are like, oh man.
Him again.
Him again.
Jealousy, basically.
Yeah, or it's just, it doesn't feel like there's opportunity for them, right? I just don't know the right way to say that.
Yeah,
Right?
I know what you mean, but
It's like, how can-
it's almost like, okay, I'm gonna step back to get somebody else the award, like maybe shine for a minute.
What was happening is I was starting to feel almost a sense of others feeling like of some resentment, and I was like, and then there becomes a point in your career where you start to recognize it's not about me, and that.
I think that's age.
It probably is. And I think back to when I was starting out, and it's like, man, I need an opportunity. If I could just get one of these awards so that I can, push my business forward. So my attitude started to switch where I almost sense like this resentment coming from others, and that I recognize that I have a responsibility to give back to industry. So I backed off for a little bit. But then I also know from a marketing perspective and as a business owner that, okay, I can't, pull myself right out long term, because that's just going to be detrimental to my success at the end of the day.
And why would you?
Yeah, so I tend to kind of ebb and flow. Some years I'll enter the awards, some years I won't. I actually wasn't going to enter this year. But
what decided you to do it anyway?
It was the design end of things, where I recognized that, the general population doesn't even know I design stuff.
I know, and neither did I.
So I thought, okay, you know what? I'm gonna do the design awards, and kudos to the CHBA, because the design awards is actually fairly new to the association. It's something I advocated way back in like 2009 when I first joined the association. I used to complain that designers weren't getting enough recognition. It was always the builders. You see a stunning house, and the first question you ask is, "Oh, who built that?" The better question is, who designed that? Now, it takes a really good builder to build a complex design, but the reason that looks so
It's
inviting,
because of the design.
it's because of great designers. And that obviously I was biased. I was a designer going, how come the designers don't get the credit? So I've advocated for many, many years for that.
So
And
you then opened the door for all the other designers to become
I'm not going
record.
to take credit for opening the door. I think others opened the door, but me pestering people got them. It may have created a movement where people felt that, yeah, we need to do something about this, right? So, and they did. The great thing is designers are finally starting to get more recognition for that, right? So for us, I looked at that and went, well, maybe we enter some design categories. that's where it started. And then my staff are such amazing staff, and they pushed me and said, well, you should also be going for, why don't you go for design firm of the year, and why aren't you going for building designer? And I'm like, yeah, I was pretty content just going for, you know, some houses winning and some bathrooms and stuff. And I am so glad I followed their advice. You know, the very first time we've ever entered the design firm category, and we took design firm of the year. We are now considered the #1 design firm in the Central Okanagan.
Good for you.
First time I entered in residential building design category, we took residential building design designer of the year, making us the #1 building designer in the Central Okanagan. That's was a little overwhelming, and you know, on Saturday night when the awards happened, when I got up there to give a speech on design firm, I'm typically not a person who's lost for words or gets too hung up in emotions, but I actually had to take a pause because I couldn't start my speech because I was actually so overwhelmed.
Wow.
Yeah, it was actually.
It's too bad I missed that one. Like all these other years, I was always there, but this one, no, I was in Victoria, I couldn't make it, but very unfortunate.
That's the second record that we broke tonight. We are the only firm ever in the association to take 3 grand awards. So we took Design Firm of the Year, Builder of the Year, and Residential Building Designer of the Year. And all 3 of them, coincidentally, were announced in a row.
Oh, so it was like Les Bellamy.
Les Bellamy. It was actually almost, you know, I was very proud, but also a little bit embarrassed by the 3rd one because it's like, that guy again?
Like you just, it shows that when you work hard and you stay your ground, the direction will take you.
But I surround myself with really amazing people.
Yes.
And I sincerely mean that. You know, my skill comes in coaching and vetting. So when I'm working with my trade partners, you know, over years of experience, finding the right trade partners who can put things together the way that we need to put them together, right? Finding the right staff is step 1. Getting them the information they need and the training they need to excel, and then creating an environment where they want to excel and they feel like they're part of something.
Yeah.
You know, you mentioned that I own a couple of businesses. I actually own 4 businesses, but my 3rd business is I own a framing and foundation company.
On top of that.
And so obviously they do my
I didn't
framing and
know
foundation work. Yeah, it's not something I go around. It's called the Maddie Group. For no particular reason other than that was just a name that came up, and I created a cool logo for it. Anyways, they were with me on award nights.
Nice.
Now, these are guys that are crawling around in the dirt and the sawdust day to day, wearing tool belts, rough framing. You know, when I said I'd like you guys to come to this and you need a suit, and they all look at each other and go, we don't have suits. And I said, well, if you need to rent a suit, let me know and I'll rent you a suit, right?
Nice.
I just want you guys to have the opportunity to see where your hard work goes.
Yeah.
They don't get to see these stunning houses. They're out there figuring out how they're going to, you know, take that 40-foot beam and stick it out over top of the lake because I was too crazy with my crayons.
Wow.
Right? So that was probably the second most exciting award that I got on Saturday night, was having my team there and just watching them take this all in. They're like, you know, they said, wow, the mayor's here. It's like, yeah,
wow.
You know.
That's pretty cool.
And then the mayor comes over and gives me a hug, and they're like, you know the mayor. I'm like, yeah, okay, I know the mayor. But, you know, it's just that gala event, you know, it's just such a huge formal gala event. And for my team to be able to experience that, I was excited for them. And
good for you.
Yeah,
you know what, Les, you've been a great person to deal with over all these years. You built amazing homes.
Thank you.
You are not afraid to speak up. You're not afraid to steer the pod at all. And what, you know, whether people like the process or not is irrelevant.
Yeah.
But it creates change, and it allows people to change, and then good things come out of it. But it takes people like you to ruffle feathers and, like, you know, shake them up, not just to be content and, like, no, push yourself further.
I think as business leaders, we have a responsibility to speak up. You know, I've had some people say, well, you know, you say some very pointed things, and aren't you afraid of that harming your business? and I always answer the same way. If the success of my business is based on what I'm speaking about politically or socially, then I'm failing as a business. It's my responsibility to make sure I'm doing such a good job at what my business is that a little bit of cannon fodder because of opinions that I've shared is not going to disrupt that.
No.
And I would think that the average consumer is not choosing their builder or designer based on what their opinion of skim milk is.
No.
I think that the average consumer is smarter than that.
Yeah.
So I do take opportunities to speak up.
And you're very selective with your clients too. Because I think actually we had this conversation too where you're like, not everybody can work. You can work with everybody. And neither you should. So finding the right clients is just as much important.
I'm a firm believer that the right consumer and the right builder, there's always one for the other. You just have to find them. I'm not the right fit for every client. And sometimes I have to be the person that explains that to the client, that based on what I am not going to meet your expectations in the way that you would like me to perform my duties. So I know how that ends if I go down that path. So you will find somebody who will work within those parameters for you, and you'll have a great relationship, I hope. But I know that we wouldn't have the right relationship.
Good for you.
So the same with the consumer, though, right? I am never offended if somebody comes in this door and says, and I do my spiel, and they go, "Yeah, we decided to go with Builder X instead." I truly, sincerely wish them the best build possible. Because when they don't have a positive build, that reflects on the industry as a whole, right? So I dislike bad builders as much as the next guy. I want everybody to have a positive experience, whether they're building with me or building with somebody else. Because when they have a negative experience, that reflects on the industry as a whole. So making sure that a potential client has the right builder, whether it's me or another, that's important.
That's important. Les, thank you so much for having me around here. This was unbelievable. I love it. I want you to show me all these awards, and I want to get invited next time to your next amazing build. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.